Hi. Christians are always begging Jesus to hurry up and come on back down. Or back up or over, depending on where one is on the earth, I guess. I mean, if you're in the southern hemisphere, does that mean Jesus comes up? And if you're in the northern hemisphere, he comes down? I guess it doesn't matter. One thing we know, Jesus is going to be huge. Every eye will see him coming, so he has to be far bigger than the earth. Well, unless the earth is flat, of course, which some Christians believe. But I'm already slipping away from my point right here at the beginning. Christians long for Jesus to come, and I have a way to make this happen. It's perfectly good and righteous. Yahweh could have no legitimate reason to be annoyed by it. Jesus said he was coming soon, and the time was at hand, and it was the last hour. He actually said he had come within the generation of those with whom he lived and to whom he spoke. But the best laid schemes of mice and men gang after glee. So I guess Jesus couldn't make it happen, or maybe he was just confused about the whole thing. Anyway, let's help the man out. How, you ask? Well, before I tell you, let me explain why my way will work and won't make Yahweh angry. I recently read an article by Michael C. Hurley called "Remember Man, Thou Art Dust." It was posted in American Thinker on Ash Wednesday, March 2nd of this month. And it's about COVID. Hurley was bemoaning the fact that the bishops in the Catholic Church closed down the churches. He wrote, "In some places such as Britain, frightened bishops quietly urged the government to compel them to close the churches. In other dioceses, including many in the United States, credulous bishops embraced every irrational, soul-destroying directive that sprang from the fevered imaginations of leftist technocrats without so much as a fig leaf of resistance, as if the gospel for which the martyrs fought and died gave them no power or authority to do otherwise. To understand the scope of the damage that has been done to the church, let's begin with a thought experiment. Assume you're given the power and the choice to save the soul of only one person from an eternity in hell. But to do so, you must make martyrs and saints of every man, woman, and child now living on the face of the earth. How would you choose? Assuming that every life lost would rise to glory in heaven, that's a big assumption. Would you calculate the value of saving one person from hell to exceed the value of all the days and years of life on earth lost to the billions of those earthly lives whose earthly lives would be cut short? Would billions and billions of days of life on earth and all the joy and wonder and happiness they would surely contain be worth one soul lost to an eternity in hell? Hurley answers his questions by saying that, of course, one soul is worth more than billions of earthly lives. Yes, the loss of billions of lives is not to be compared to the loss of one soul. So churches should have remained open, he proclaimed, so they could save that one soul even if everybody within the buildings perished or lost their biological lives. Again, he's assuming that everybody in all the church buildings in the world were going to go to heaven. Hurley, in fact, went on to say there is a reason why St. Paul admonished early Christians not to forsake the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some is. At a time in history when following that advice posed a risk of violence far more deadly than a week of flu-like symptoms for most healthy people under 80. And to ban that fellowship is to banish Christ from our midst. Not sure how that happens. And Hurley declared that Jesus didn't come to heal us physically, but rather to save our souls. However, he noted that out of cowardice and fear, the bishops endangered the eternal hopes of millions in exchange for a false hope of physical safety. Alrighty then. Now we know that the so-called sanctity of life that Christians talk about every time abortion is mentioned is meaningless. Life here on earth is worthless to them. All that matters is a future home in heaven. Thus, they beg and beg and beg for Jesus to rush on down here to us and start the fire to burn almost everybody and reward them for all their love and adoration and obedience to him. Well, let's help their God out. Since we now know that this life is meaningless, we don't have to worry about making sure all those pregnancies come to fruition. The very best thing we could possibly do is end all pregnancies. Think about it. There might not be any hope for you and me, or for all those who have come before us, but we can prevent any future human being from having to risk going to hell. All we have to do is abort every single pregnancy from now on. According to Hurley, that ought to be the choice we make. Destroy the many to save the few. But we can save many. In fact, all women who are of childbearing age ought to get pregnant as often as they can and end every one of them. We could fill heaven with souls without having any worries at all. We can know that those innocents are going straight to heaven. And hey, what about the little children who haven't reached the age of accountability? We can murder them all right this minute. Why would we want to take a chance on their little souls? Some mothers already think this way. No greater love, right? Why allow your precious babies to grow up knowing they will most likely suffer eternally? Be willing to do the hard work of saving them. It doesn't matter how many die in the process. The solution will, of course, kill two birds with one stone. It'll prevent anyone else from ever going to hell, and it'll force Jesus to come. He has to come while people are living. And if we refuse to allow anyone who hasn't reached maturity to continue to live, and also end all future pregnancies, then in a short time, we'll all die out. That'll mean Jesus has to return in our generation. Well, not mine, but perhaps yours. Now, you might say, but that would be evil. Murder is wrong and abortion is wrong. But why would you say that? Let me repeat what Hurley said. Assume you're given the power and the choice to save the soul of only one person from an eternity in hell, but to do so, you must make martyrs and saints of every man, woman, and child now living on the face of the earth. How would you choose? He believes you should choose to make martyrs. He believes you should choose death for billions just so some people can all gather in one building to hear words they've heard all their lives and can read for themselves, let alone saving souls. And remember, people have the internet. They could have met online, they could have seen one another, talked to one another, shared fellowship with one another online, but billions should die so these people could get to touch one another physically. This was the thinking of this man and many other Christians. So surely we should have abortions and kill all the babies. And I suppose Hurley and these Christians would also say that if you have COVID, you should go on to church. I mean, why not? If it's that all-fired important, why in the world would you stay home just because you're sick and will make others sick? I mean, you have to worry about your influence, right? What if your neighbor, who's right on the verge of becoming a Christian, because she sees you going to church 3 times a week, and suddenly she realizes one Sunday morning you don't go? Those people at church you make sick and who possibly die because of the sickness you give them, that they won't care. I mean, they're Christians, so they'll happily give up their lives to save your neighbor's soul. After all, they want Jesus to hurry back, so they might as well be dead and go on to be with him and not have to wait. So it's a no-brainer that we should have as many abortions as possible and murder all infant children, and in the process, speed the return of Jesus. We should do that to save only one soul, and imagine how many souls we can save. And why worry about murdering people anyway? Yahweh forced people to murder lots of people, including babies, in the Old Testament, and he never changes. So we know these things aren't evil. Plus, Yahweh murdered for selfish reasons. He murdered out of a desire for vengeance and to appease his wrath. Our reasoning is holy and good. We're trying to save souls, just like Hurley said the church should have made the choice to make martyrs out of billions in order to save souls, even one soul. It's a perfect solution all the way around. So how in the world could it be bad? Who's with me? Let's do this. I shouldn't have to say this, but obviously I don't mean any of this. I'm simply pointing out the pure hypocrisy that Michael Hurley and many other Christians exhibit in their lives and teachings. But hey, they learned it from the biggest hypocrite of them all. The junior God of the New Testament said, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. Do not repay evil for evil, but overcome evil with good. Strange talk from the mouth of one who kills, or worse, his own enemies, huh? Christians claim to live by high moral standards. They run political campaigns on their so-called family values and the sanctity of life. Then they worship a God who authorizes mass murder of infant children, and they call him good. It's unfathomable that people would be such blatant hypocrites and then view themselves as being on a high moral plane. And why they can't recognize their hypocrisy when it's pointed out to them is a strange thing to behold. American thinker? I think not. Thanks for watching. Bye.